From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The unseen challenges on the farm.
The stress of the ag industry that we're in can play a huge role in weighing on people's mental health.
One farmer shares his experience with mental health and suicide as we move into another stressful time. The fight to bring labor into the ag industry.
This is a hard job, right? This is not for everyone.
One farmer weighs in on the need for legal foreign workers as another hurricane barrels toward Florida.
So even if you're not in that direct path, everybody needs to make sure that they're paying attention.
We're tracking the latest on Hurricane Ian right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, the outer winds of Hurricane Ian will soon be reaching U.S. shores. It comes as officials in Florida started issuing evacuation orders. Now, Florida declaring a state of emergency. Officials are warning people across the state to prepare for the worst, from heavy rain to dangerous storm surge. That's why people in Tampa are loading up on sandbags. Portions of the area under a mandatory evacuation order. The storm passing through Cuba, with winds from it soon to be felt in Key West. But the concern isn't just along the coast.
We're going to see significant impacts along the western coast and parts of the panhandle, but the people inland should also take this very seriously. Things that we have seen from Hurricane Ida last year to Hurricane Fiona that we just saw in Puerto Rico, that these are bringing significant rainfall with them, which is causing a lot of inland and street flooding. So even if you're not in that direct path, everybody needs to make sure that they're paying attention.
Speaking of Hurricane Irma, the 2017 storm devastated the state's citrus industry. The Florida Department of Citrus reports that growers saw 30 to 70% crop losses, with the southwest region of the state seeing the most damage. Irma uprooted trees and left many groves in standing water for up to 3 weeks. Now, it's estimated the storm caused more than $760 million in damages just to the citrus industry in the state. Florida Citrus telling AgDay it is closely monitoring Hurricane Ian and is engaged with state and federal officials ahead of the storm.
AgDay weather, brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosamic joins us with an update on the trek of Hurricane Ian and more on the timing of that storm. Matt?
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. We are tracking Hurricane Ian intensifying over Cuba and in parts of the Gulf, and looking at its eyes kind of set right there on the Florida Gulf Coast. Let's take a look at what things are looking like here. Here's where we go through Tuesday morning. As the system moves north of Cuba, it's going to be over some warm waters yet again. That is going to help to intensify this storm even farther. But as it starts to move closer, this is when Tuesday evening and into early Wednesday, the outer band's going to be moving in here. This is when you'll start to see some of that storm surge flooding here, really Key West back through the Keys and up into parts of southwest Florida. As the system continues to advance northward, you're going to start to see the heavier bands of rain move in, more gusty winds along the southwest Florida coast, and eventually that storm will move inland. Right now it looks somewhere around the Tampa area that is going to be dealing with the eye of that storm as it makes landfall. Again, we'll continue to track that right here on AgDay, but look at the rainfall with this. It could be upwards of 5 to 8 plus. In some cases here, we could be looking at over 10 to 15 inches of rain. Flooding from that, storm surge flooding, winds, all of that could be coming over the next couple of days for Florida, and we'll continue to track that right here, and we'll have more on your forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Matt. The EPA is withdrawing its interim decision about glyphosate. And the bottom line for farmers, label restrictions for glyphosate are not changing right now. EPA says it will complete its registration review in 2026. The announcement follows a June opinion from the U.S. Court of Appeals decision. That decision vacated the human health portion of EPA's interim decision after finding the cancer analysis was flawed. Now, the agency had been facing an October 1st deadline to complete an Endangered Species Act review and a new health assessment analysis of the product. But EPA says withdrawing doesn't mean it's necessarily changing its position on the human health assessment. It says it intends to revisit and better explain its evaluation. USDA is forecasting farm sector profits to reach near record highs this year. Take a look at this chart from the Economic Research Service. Net cash farm income minus cash expenses are expected to be $168.5 billion. That's more than an 8% increase year over year and the highest level since 2012. But look at net farm income. Now, it's forecast to fall to $147.7 billion this year. That's down slightly from last year. Net farm income is a broader measure of profitability. It incorporates things like changes in inventories, economic depreciation, and rental income. Both cash receipts and expenses are forecast to increase, with expenses expected to increase more than 11%, offsetting some of this year's income growth. USDA is announcing new funding to provide high-speed internet access in rural areas. The agency making the investments through the third funding round of the Reconnect program. Now, it's awarding $502 million in loans and grants. The money will go to 32 projects in 20 states. For example, Net Vision Communications is receiving a $12 million loan to connect more than 4,500 people, 300 businesses, 9 farms, along with several public schools in Barton County, Missouri. There's a similar plan to deploy a fiber to the premises network in Oklahoma. USDA says it will make additional investments in the coming months. A nationwide shortage of workers is exposing a gaping hole in the economy, the need for legal foreign workers. Now, it's something the ag industry knows firsthand. There are at least 670,000 asylum seekers now in the U.S. awaiting their cases to be heard, but the average wait time is 4.5 years. In the meantime, they can apply to legally work, a process that can take several months. But Jessica Cooper says she needs the help now. She owns a small farm outside of Orlando. She sells to restaurants at major attractions like Disney World, which is a year-round operation. Now, she says she's advertised everywhere to find help with no luck.
We're finding that it's hard to keep domestic labor. This is a hard job, right? This is not for everyone.
And it's not just in Florida. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 11.2 million open jobs in the U.S. The markets just got over the Fed raising interest rates, but what could another potential rate hike mean? We'll take a look at that next in analysis. And later, the stress of farming can often feel overwhelming. Today, we'll hear from a Texas farmer that's dealt with suicide too many times. His story in the country. First, it was the U.S. dollar hitting a 20-year record high, but now the British pound has hit a record low against the dollar. The pound dropping more than 4% against the U.S. dollar on Monday as trading opened in Asia and Australia. The slump follows the UK government's announcement last week that it would impose the biggest tax cuts in 50 years as a way to boost spending. Now, critics argue the measure could lead to the collapse of the pound. The Bank of England said it would, quote, not hesitate to change interest rates by as much as needed to bring down inflation. And as the U.S. dollar continues to rise, we also have to keep a close watch on the Fed's aggressive policy. AgDay's Michelle Rook discusses that in this morning's market report.
Joining us with market analysis here in AgDay, Joe Vaklovic with Standard Grain. And Joe, we are past the Fed announcement, 3/4 point raise in interest rates, but now everybody's kind of looking forward to what Fed policy does from here on out. What do you see is going to happen and how will it impact commodities?
Well, the 3/4 point was as expected. That was no surprise. The devil is in the details with all this stuff. It's about the forward guidance. It's about what does the Fed say about things moving forward. They are dead set on restoring price stability, which means reducing inflation, getting inflation back to what they believe is like a normal level, like a 2 or 3%, where now inflation's running above 8% according to their metrics, their CPIs, their PPIs, all that stuff. So that's their job, and they're going to hike rates until they get to that point. The general belief among Fed members is that they may get to that point sometime during 2023, at which point they could start to cut rates again and get back to a neutral Fed fund level, which is like 2.5%. The effective rate's like 3 1/8. after yesterday's cut. So the general trajectory in their mind right now is that rates go up for maybe another year, and then maybe they can start to ease. But that's all contingent. It's all contingent on the idea or theory that these rate hikes are going to accomplish the task of reducing inflation. And we just don't know if that's a fact. So it's still a big unknown. I mean, if this inflation is sticky as it has been and continues to be for another year, they may have to go higher than what they've discussed in regard to interest rates. And it looks like they're ready to do that at all costs. And that cost may be a recession, which is bad news for every market on the planet.
Right. Does that keep the funds heading for the door?
So if you're a large speculator, you have been long the corn market for a long time. Some of them probably have been. I mean, funds haven't been net short corn or soybeans since the middle or later part of 2020. So we're going on 2 years now. If I'm a large money manager, do I want to be long corn at $7 if the world's falling apart economically? Maybe not. But, supply and demand does matter. It does matter that we've got a light crop in the U.S. this year. South American crop prospects do matter. Russia, Ukraine matters. So there's a lot of bullish stuff you can talk about. There's a lot of bearish stuff you can talk about when it comes to the probability or possibility of recession and the negative demand implications associated with that.
Thanks so much. That's Joe Vaclavic with Standard Grain. We have more Ag Day coming up.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And Matt, let's talk about where we could see some potential flooding from Hurricane Ian.
Oh yeah, and this is this map doesn't even include the storm surge potential. This is just the flooding rains that we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of days. And again, still watching that storm over the Gulf, moving closer though throughout the day. And if you take a look at the map here, you can really see the areas Tampa up to Orlando really dealing with that chance for some flooding rains. But again, this does not include the storm surge potential that's going to come along Florida's west coast. And that's with all that water kind of being shoved up against the coastline from Ian as it moves its way on in over the next couple of days. So that is something to watch. But this right here could be upwards of 10 to 15 inches of rain in some parts of Florida. Take a look at the map here over the next few days. You can see all of these areas here dealing with almost 5 to 8 plus inches of rain, at least down here, but even more could be possible right north of where that center comes on shore. And that's because that's where the heaviest rain is going to fall as that system moves inland just a little bit. So again, that band or that heaviest area of rain could still shift as we head through the next couple of days. So here's a look at most of the country here over the next 10 days. Not a whole lot is going on except for down in Florida. We've got a few showers up at Great Lakes and some out in the southwest. And really high pressures in control. Most of the country dealing with pretty nice weather. Cold front here across the east. That is what Ian is going to run into, and that's what's going to drive Ian back into the Florida coast instead of allowing it to move north into the Panhandle or over towards places like Alabama, Mississippi, or even Louisiana. High pressure in control though for most of the country. Just a few showers out in the west and some more showers and maybe a couple of thunderstorms moving through the Great Lakes, parts of the Northeast. And here comes Ian heading into the day on Wednesday. Going to be moving closer to the Florida coast, eventually running into that front and sliding up into the southeast. But cooler weather across the north, dealing with temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Cooler air moving on in, but still warm back in the west and across the south where we're not dealing with Ian. We've still got temperatures in the 80s and 90s, and we're going to continue to track all this right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. We're tracking Ian in Florida. Heavy rain, thunderstorms, and windy conditions in Fort Myers, Florida with a high near 82 degrees. Heading to Scott City, Kansas, sunny and warm, a high near 85. And Yuma, Arizona, sunny and hot, a high of 105.
Ag Day, brought to you by Rumensin. Rumensin's quality, consistency, and efficiency make it the right choice for your cattle operation. Rumensin, trusted by generations.
It's reported the use of butter and cheese in the U.S. hit records last year. Take a look at this chart supplied by the National Milk Producers Federation. you can see both American cheese and butter have been on an upward trend for the past 11 years. Now, the organization says the rising popularity is offsetting drops in fluid milk consumption. But the latest milk production report continues to show positive growth. USDA in the August report outlining milk production is up 1.6% over the same time last year, but cow numbers declined 11,000 head. Now, on your screen is a list of the top 6 states for milk production, with Texas leading the way in year-over-year positive growth, up nearly 9% and 30,000 cows. Meanwhile, the South Dakota herd grew by 22,000 head. In New Mexico and Michigan, they saw a few losses. And our dairy team is gearing up for a big event next week in Madison, Wisconsin, the World Dairy Expo. Now, it starts this Sunday and runs through Friday, October 7th. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan will be there along with representatives from Farm Journal's Dairy Herd Management, so look for reports next week. A kind word can go a long way. Up next, how a Texas farmer used words in action to help save a friend from suicide. His incredible story next.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF. BASF, helping you do the biggest jobs on earth.
September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. It's a difficult topic that the ag industry has been putting a sharper focus on in recent years, as studies show people in ag experience higher rates of depression, substance use, and completed suicide. Today we hear a first-hand account from a Texas Panhandle farmer, courtesy of the folks at Texas A&M and the Southwest Ag Center.
My name is Grant Heinrich. I am from Slayton, Texas. I grew up on a cotton farm about 8 miles from here. The stress of the ag industry that we're in can play a huge role in weighing on people's mental health. This is about 2 years ago. We had a farmhand needing a part-time job. He is about 4 years younger than I am. And so really, he was like the younger brother I never had. I just happened to be looking down at my phone. I got a text message, and basically what it was his last goodbye. And I glanced down, I looked at he had just sent, and I was like, oh my God, he's still alive. Like, I've got to go find him. I jumped out of the seat, got in my pickup, and got on the phone because I knew he was out at the farm somewhere. Unfortunately, in my life, I've been around suicide way too much. I've had an uncle and 2 cousins pass away by suicide. One when I was in college. It was on my 19th birthday, and he was like an older sibling to me. Honestly, he was my Superman. The way I heard my aunt cry at that funeral, I told myself I could never allow that to happen to my family ever again. It's about 12 minutes to get from this office to the barn, and I think I made it in about 6. You know, the whole time my heart was beating. I was scared to death of what I was fixing to walk up on. And I was so afraid that he had already made a bad decision. And when I saw him, he was crying. And I remember just being so thankful that he was still alive. Ultimately, he laid the gun down and walked over to me, and I gave him the biggest hug that I could give him, because I was like, man, I was just so proud that we got to keep him. He got to go home. We all got to go home. So. We don't like to talk about it a whole lot, but I've always heard that, you know, if you refuse to talk about it, it's like that person died twice.
You can watch Grant's full story on YouTube. Just search Home Safe Home. Now, if you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, call or text 988 or connect with someone at 988lifeline.org. That's all the time we have this morning. I'm sure glad that you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.